Welcome, everyone. What I wanted to do was quickly start off with an introduction from Parshan.
Thank you, Shernaz. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good night, depending on what part of the world you all are at. We are going to be kicking off the second FEZANA Talk series with the panel on Boss Ladies, the 2.0 version. So real quick note on this panel. This panel first took place in the 7th World Youth Congress and really quickly became one of the most empowering and fascinating panels that was loved by everybody who attended the conference and really led to the mission of showing the empowering work that our Zoro women are doing around the world. And so as we are in the 1-year anniversary of the Congress, what better way to really highlight the continued effort that so many of our inspiring women are doing around the world than to bring everybody back and do this panel all over again. In a moment, I'm going to pass it to Shernaz to take the panel off and kick it off. But real quick, a few words about Shernaz, the panel moderator of today. Shernaz is a Canadian-born senior director of user experience, design, and research at Zuora. She is currently responsible for providing global creative direction and business strategy to create inspiring, customer-centric product experiences. Previously at Intuit, Shernaz led a large team of interaction, visual, and motion designers focusing on end-to-end marketing and product first impressions experiences. In addition, she led early career design strategy company-wide. Shernaz founded LinkedIn's design system team, having worked on the redesign of LinkedIn. She helped the business scale by creating a UI pattern library for designers and developers to support all product teams to generate efficiency and consistency across desktop, mobile, and marketing platforms. She also managed 6 product teams between customer, enterprise, and tools experiences at LinkedIn. While there, Shernaz contributed to at least 4 different patents. With over 15 years of experience, Shernaz has been a senior designer and art director at companies such as Apple, Ogilvy, and Blast Radius, and has hosted a number of community events such as SF Design Week and Fireside Chats. In her spare time, she is passionate about giving back to the design community by coaching and mentoring others. She currently resides in Silicon Valley, California. Shernaz, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the lovely intro, Parshan. Welcome to Boss Ladies, Women in Business and Entrepreneurship, Life in COVID edition. Thank you everyone for attending our panel today. The focus of today's conversation is going to be intimate and raw. Our panel will cover topics such as COVID and its impact to our jobs and personal lives through vulnerable and raw discussions on overcoming challenges, building resilience, and the importance of continued learning. We realize that we're in a really lucky position to be safe despite everything going on in the world right now. Stay tuned because we have a lightning round where you can learn about some fun facts before we open up for Q&A at the end. We're going to have a jam-packed session, which is 90 minutes. For those of you who attended our last Zoroastrian Congress in LA, our panel is comprised of the same diverse women. So this year, we've expanded it to include an additional panelist whom we'll introduce with everyone. Again, we've intentionally organized this group to include women from diverse backgrounds and ages with global representation from both Iranian and Parsi cultures. So that way you can empathize and really relate with their stories. I'm so excited for all of us to share our own personal stories and have you discover intimate details of how we're navigating change in business and our entrepreneurship roles through globally unprecedented times. Before we dive in, we've created a poll so we can better understand what you're most excited to hear about in today's session. So please take a moment to answer what you're looking forward to hearing from us most today. Okay, so you guys should all be seeing the poll now. Okay, so it looks like we have a clear winner. So we've shared the poll results with you guys. And what it seems like you guys all want to hear most about is the importance of continued learning. We'll be covering all of these topics actually. So we'll touch upon each of these sections, but we'll give that one a little bit more love for you guys. So why don't we start off with a quick round of introductions and updates since last year's panel. So we have a new panelist today. Please welcome Rhea Wadia. Rhea, can you tell us a little bit about what you do in your current role?
Yeah, happy to. Hi, everyone. My name is Rhea. My background's in brand marketing with a focus on sports and entertainment partnerships. Currently, I'm working at Rakuten, which is a leading internet services company where I oversee our partnerships with the NBA as well as Stephen Curry. And my company is globally headquartered in Japan, where we have significant market share across various business sectors, most notably e-commerce. And particularly though, we're a relatively new brand here in North America. So I'm tasked specifically with utilizing our benefits from our sports and entertainment sponsorship portfolio to help us not only continue to grow our brand globally, with an emphasis of making Rakuten a household brand name in the States, but also driving growth towards our various business units. So I know that there's a lot of conversation going on around the return of live sports across the world, and I'm excited to participate in the conversation and excited to be here.
Great, thank you. Welcome. We're so excited to have you be part of the panelists this year too. So for the panelists who were part of the original Boss Ladies panel at the Congress in LA, a lot has changed since last year. So starting off with a quick round of introductions again, if you each just highlight one thing about your jobs that's changed since last year, please.
Hey everyone, my name is Bharucha. I'm still at Tesla. I've been there for about 3 years now, but I have moved groups since the last Congress within Tesla. So I used to do glass strategic sourcing and I moved on to the battery team. It's been really awesome to have the opportunity to transfer laterally within the same company, but also continue learning and learning new things, especially for one of the most important technologies to the company.
Great. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Shernaz Pavri. I already had the intro. So my company that I work for is Zora. I function in the capacity as a senior director of user experience design and research. I've been there about 2 years now. And for those of you who don't know what Zora is, we essentially are helping transform the subscription economy. We have clients like Zoom Video, SurveyMonkey, and even a lot of automotive companies. One of the fascinating things that about how businesses have transformed since COVID is really being able to see some of the companies who've thrived in these environments. So for example, Zoom. With the notion of everything moving towards remote meetings and having replaced face-to-face interactions, other companies, like we've had to bear hug a little bit more. There's now a need for subscriptions that need to be paused and resumed. So we've quickly had to pivot and really be able to support customers in this time of need. We're a leading cloud-based software solution that automates all subscription from order to revenue operations for any business. And the reality is that a lot of these businesses have also gone into survival mode, needing to rethink ways in which they're working and using this time to transform as an organization to better support our customers. So one of the exciting things that I'm working on currently is partnering with our C-suite leaders and teams throughout product and engineering to really help develop our UX and UI design strategy for the entire company. So we're using this time as a way in which we can really transform our customer experience and come out of this period even stronger.
Hi everyone, my name is Natashah. I am a business owner. We have salons here in San Diego, California. We obviously still own them, but due to COVID, it's been closed. We just recently reopened 3 weeks ago. During that 10 weeks of closure, I basically took it upon myself to start an e-commerce site. So all the products that we sell in store, all of our own personally made products through Beauty by Dolly are able to be sold online now. And so I've basically taught myself e-commerce and a lot of different aspects of that. So that's been really interesting. Also, I recently just got my PHR. For those of you who don't know, that's a professional in human resources. So I was already taking on that task at work, of course, because I wear a ton of hats. Just being an owner, you just kind of have to do everything that's there for you. But I think it's really important to be really well versed in HR. So I have taken the exam. I passed the exam. I'm now a PHR, which is great because COVID has really made that an important part of everyone's job, just dealing with things like unemployment, how to deal with certain things. So that's been really interesting for me. A lot of changes there. And yeah, it's been hard, but I've been learning a ton, and it's really, really interesting taking on a new portion of the business that I've been wanting to do for so long, but just never got the chance. So it's been great.
Hi everybody, my name is Mayor Pavri. Thanks everybody for tuning in. It's so great to see, who's in the chat and where you're tuning in from. So don't forget to say hi. I am an opera singer and I do musical theater and I do film and television, commercial work, all of that kind of stuff basically in the entertainment business. So as you know, our business has been hit very, very, very hard. For instance, I was supposed to premiere actually the Mahabharat in September with Shaw Festival, which is like one of Canada's biggest theater companies. And it's now been postponed till 2022. So I've just had to adjust a ton because I had a really exciting 2020 planned in terms of performances, and whether it be in Toronto or in different places in Canada, and everything has been canceled. I also teach toddler music classes, so I teach kids 4 and under with their parents, and that again is all live, so usually we'd have about 10 families learning music together, and we've had to shift all of that kind of stuff online. So it's been very tough for me for sure, having lost all of my performing work, but having to pivot and shift my music teaching online. Just like Natashah was saying, you learn so many new skills in the process, and every day is a new day, so.
Thanks. Pearl? I think you're on mute. We'll give Pearl a second. Pearl, do you want to share your intro? I think you went off mute and then on mute again.
Hi. Can you hear me? Sorry. Hi, sorry. Can everyone hear me? There's been a bit of a glitch, but I'm back. So to continue where I left off from last year. So I'm in a family business which is divided across 6 verticals. My name's Pearl Jimmy Mistry. I'm from Mumbai and I'm a director at Della Group. So being in a family business, one thing that is for sure is that your role is very permeable. So I don't have a department or a particular thing that I look into, but over the past year, I've been very active in the design space. So I've been doing a lot of residential and commercial projects, which have been extremely client facing. And at the same time, what's going on is I've been very actively into the furniture manufacturing part, which is in a factory where I go and travel with my brother and live in Udvada. So I think the plus side about this whole experience has been the fact that I'm able to live in Udvada, visit the Atish Behram, I think at least about 2 or 3 times a week, which is a completely different thing because even though we're so close to it, we don't land up getting a chance to. And from last year to now, I'm happy that I've been able to do a lot more with community service. So I think the momentum that built up from the Congress that, and you know, when we came back, I just made sure not to stop with it. So that's been something that's going on this year with me.
Great. So yeah, hopefully you can really understand the diversity that we have within this panel and be able to empathize with some of their unique situations. So let's talk a little bit about COVID and the impact on our jobs. They say that change is really the only constant. Right now, our entire world has had to face so much uncertainty. Uncertainty with our jobs, the economy, health and safety, our personal lives, etc. COVID has really forced us to re-examine parts of our lives of the new norm. So let's talk a little bit about what the new norm means to all of you. Natashah, do you want to get us started?
Sure. So once this whole COVID situation happened, my life, my job, my work, everything kind of just turned upside down because, like I just mentioned before, we literally had 2 stations. That means not only are we making zero revenue, we are still owing our bills and just things that don't stop on the other end. So we have, and I'm pregnant right too. It was just a really shock. This was something that, I mean, nobody in this literally an entire world expected to happen. So that's a big enough change in itself. And then this whole COVID situation happened. I've had job security for the last 15 years. I have always felt really safe in what I do, especially because it's something that I can control myself. Or not do well, it really just hurt. And the leadership that I provide to my team and, you know, our customer journey and like our experience and all of those things. But this is the first time that everything was out of my hands. So anyways, my new normal is really, really, really just crazy. I have for the first time really considered potentially having to, you know, look for another job if this lasts for too long. I mean, what we do at our salons is very intimate. We don't do hair, we don't do makeup or things like that. We do specifically, so is you're in someone's face. You can't help it. There is really no other way to do it. And so we've taken a ton of precautions, but although we've been open now for 3 weeks, they're discussing potentially closing things again. California is also shutting things down, like restaurants and bars and things of that like. So there's just, my new normal is kind of just taking every day, one day at a time. And a big part of my new normal is like, you know, browsing around, looking at jobs, which is like probably, I don't think many companies are hiring, but it's just getting my feet wet and looking at what else is out there because I honestly don't know what is going to happen.
It's incredible. Rhea? I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So first off, from a brand association perspective, I'm really lucky that my company partners up with organizations and athletes that are showing up really well during this time, especially during COVID. They were the first to suspend their season in response to COVID. And that resulted in setting a precedent for many other sports leagues around the world to copy as well. And just the way that they've been showing up as far as, you know, planning their return to action has shown great leadership and is really a well thought out plan. and I think that also just goes back to how the partnerships that we have are rooted in our shared values, and that's why we're able to have confidence in them showing up so well. But that being said, COVID has affected my job tremendously, right? Because live sports has been on pause. So my new normal is being in a constant state of pivoting. One day I could have a great marketing idea to execute, and by the time I'm ready to launch it, it can be completely irrelevant and tone deaf. And so it's constantly, being able to read the environment that we're working in. And so, one of the things that, we've been leaning into is understanding like where consumers are right now. And there's a lot of research to support that. People are consuming a lot of media, more so than usual, because they're at home and they don't have a lot of other activities to do, particularly on digital and social platforms. So we've been really leaning in more to that, particularly on the digital and social front as far as content creation goes, to really help showcase our brand values and show what we stand for. And one of the examples I can give of that is last month with Stefan, we launched a social campaign called Optimistic Together, where, surprisingly enough for us, or actually beneficial for us, when you translate the name Rakuten from Japanese to English, it literally means optimism. So it's a great value to have, especially during these times when you need a little bit more optimism. And so what we had Stefan do was, put together a series of clips from, how he's staying sane during COVID, how he's sheltering in place with his family. And for those of you that follow Stefan on social media, he's an incredibly, charismatic and relatable person. So he put together a great piece of content for us, where we were able to weave in a social challenge with our other brand ambassadors, organizer extraordinaire Marie Kondo, and football player Andres Iniesta. And we were able to really show that, interaction across our ecosystem of partners, as well as, generate user content by asking consumers, how are they staying optimistic during this time? So not only are we really putting content out there that is relevant and, uplifting for the times, but we're also finding a way to integrate our brand and what we stand for from a messaging perspective in a subtle way that's not necessarily overtly in your face. And then third, we're able to integrate our ecosystem of partners on a global level, which is something that we haven't done before, in bringing all three of them on the same stage. So that's been really exciting for us in terms of setting a foundation, for future marketing campaigns and executions that we can do.
Nice.
That's awesome. Rhea, you're making me miss sports so much. Like I was telling you, the girls earlier, I was supposed to sing for the Raptors game in April, but obviously that didn't happen. So for me, my new normal is really taking care of my mental and physical health, because to be honest, it really was devastating, losing all of my work, all these exciting gigs and everything that I was really looking forward to. I actually still have it in my phone calendar, which I should probably delete. So my new normal for auditioning right now, it's kind of exciting. Like the other day I auditioned for a Best Buy commercial in my home. So obviously the first audition, they actually wanted a tour home. I felt like I was on Cribs and, showing them the different spaces that we could potentially film in. But that's kind of, I think, where some commercials are going, where we're actually filming in our own home. Things like voice work, for instance, like with companies like Ubisoft, that's kind of picking up a bit, because I think voice work is one of those things where you can be, farther away from people. As far as film and television, I really don't know when my next film and television audition is going to be. But just the fact that, we can now film commercials from our home is pretty exciting, and I don't have to travel anywhere to do it. I'm not, racing for the streetcar to get to this audition. Another thing in Canada that we have, luckily, is something called CERB. So it's $2,000 that you get a month, which really helps, for basic necessities and rent and things like that. That, the Canadian government is giving to Canadians who have lost their job. And yeah, really my new normal is, things like working out every day from home now, which, and, you know, being at work, we'd be physically active all the time together. So again, keeping up with, you know, skills, I now have to kind of incorporate and make my own schedule every day. And I have kind of like a weekly schedule that I follow now. And I'm just trying to get creative with different things that I can be doing from home. Again, with the teaching online, doing just as much stuff as possible through things like Zoom, and just trying to get really creative. I think this is a really great time as artists or people in general to pivot and learn new skills and really take this time to, you know, I just want to be ready when I'm back auditioning for shows again. I just want my skills to be, you know, on the same level as they were when I was performing all the time. But it is a really exciting time to be able to kind of reinvent yourself, and you have more time. At least I have more time to, I know people like Cher and my sister, she has less time than normal. But for me, I have been blessed with time. So I'm trying to use that time as wisely as possible and trying to update skills or trying to do anything that I'm really interested in during this time.
Can I quickly chime in? Pearl, is there any way to let more participants in, because people want to enter and I guess it's like maxed out at 100, so I'm not sure.
Fine. So my brother's just trying that on the site, and we'll do something immediately.
No problem. I keep seeing all the chats, so I'm like, oh no, people want to enter in. Okay.
I'm getting inundated with requests on my phone too. So.
I know, me.
It's good. It's good. So Mare, do you want to share a little bit?
Yeah. So my job, like at Fundamentals, is managing supply and demand. So when you have factories shutting down, countries putting in lockdowns, freight costs going up, it gets really hard to manage the changes and fluctuations in supply and the changes and fluctuations in demand. So my job has drastically changed since COVID, and it continues to evolve every day as things change. On the other side too, when I work a lot with contracts, there was always language like barring an act of God that is always standard in contracts, but we'd always put it in the contract, but we never could really think of a situation that would be so unexpected that we would have to change how we react to different contracts. But now we're constantly thinking of the next pandemic and how it may impact manufacturing and supply and demand, and how we can protect ourselves against that uncertainty in the future. So it's made my job a lot more difficult and a lot more dynamic, but that also means a lot more fun and a lot more learning.
Great. One of the things that really struck a chord with me was this analogy that the CEO at Zora Teen shared when we were first experiencing this epidemic. And that's something that really helped me change my mindset. One of the things that he encouraged us to do was almost like not set our minds up for disappointment, in that, you know, we have this, so we have a globally distributed team where we have a large office even in China. And so we knew a little bit about what was happening in different geos and who were experiencing these things ahead of us within the US or even European markets. So we knew that this wasn't something that we were going to just be living with for 2 weeks. And the idea of like, you know, not getting our hopes up to be setting ourselves up for disappointment should things not reopen quickly was something that he encouraged us to get us accustomed to as part of this new norm, and almost like embracing the change as if it was permanent. So he gave the analogy of like, you know, being able to learn a new language like if you're going to another country, you're more likely to actually take time to learn that language if you're thinking that that move is permanent. Whereas if you go there for just a couple weeks and then you're thinking, oh, I'm going to come back, you're likely not really going to learn and immerse yourself in the language, the culture. So really just being able to embrace that change was key. And so that really helped in the beginning. And just there's definitely a blurring of personal and professional life. But I cannot wait for the day where we don't have to wear masks anymore and we can travel freely. So that's just me. So not all of us have been lucky enough to be able to work remotely during this time. Unfortunately, unemployment rates are at an all-time high. Mare and Natashah and Pearl, your jobs have required you to have a lot of face-to-face interaction, a lot of close interaction, like you highlighted, Natashah, where you're in close proximity of each other with clients, or in your case, Mare, performances too. So what are some of the things that have affected your commitments, and how have you learned to deal with that ambiguity?
Yeah, so everything has been affected, and I kind of share, I was telling you this earlier, I wish we had that conversation earlier about, you know, trying to make that mental shift, you know, that, you know, this could be, this is our new normal, period. You know what I mean? Like, I still have contracts in November and December where they haven't told me if it's going to be canceled, but, you know, you kind of know that it's going to be canceled. So again, just shifting my mental thinking to think, okay, this is, my year is canceled, this is it. You know, they just announced that Broadway is even canceled till the next year. So even though I haven't heard back from these theater companies, I just have mentally shifted into like, okay, this is my new normal, and this is our time to get creative. Again, with the teaching online, we teach toddlers. It's really hard. Our classes are normally 45 minutes, and now our classes are down to 15 minutes. Those 15 minutes on Zoom with a toddler and their parent are so important, and you can do so much in that. So again, it's getting really creative. We're trying to shift our classes into parks maybe, and having people, you know, 6 feet away from each other. You just have to really think outside the box, I think, for a lot of these things, especially because none of us know when theater is going to come back, or what the new normal for that will even look like. So I've been starting to record stuff for different gigs that were supposed to be happening. So for instance, this week I was supposed to be doing a show all week, and they got us to actually just record all of our songs so that they could put them out in a different capacity, which I thought was really interesting. And again, like Natashah said, it's like we're learning all these new skills, and who knows when that could help you in the future too.
Yeah, Mare, I actually want to kind of touch what you said about like teaching on Zoom, and then also previously you said like just the way things have changed so much. So you're like doing auditions in your house, like on FaceTime or like on whatever, taking a video of yourself, which is really interesting. So I also tutor refugee kids Tuesdays and Thursdays. Clearly no one is doing that right now just due to everything going on, but we have started these Zoom sessions with them, and it's so interesting because we kind of forget about the kids and how the kids are affected, but these kids get a lot of help from us and our tutoring because their parents are unable to help them. So the school doesn't stop. The school is not ended. These kids actually go to year-round school. So they still have to technically learn, and it's really hard for them because now they're stuck learning it alone. So we started doing Zoom sessions with them, which has been really nice. It's been kind of like a breath of fresh air to work with them and just kind of be face-to-face, which is, I mean, the closest we're gonna get, but that's been really, really nice. And then also, aside from that, you kind of have to learn how to pivot. So essentially, we could have just been closed for 10 weeks and just closed our doors, and I would have said, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm gonna sit home and watch Netflix all day, which is, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I did definitely do that a couple of days here and there. But I took that time to really, you know, do things that I've always wanted to do. So like I said, you know, the e-commerce platform I've been saying for years, I just never did it, never got the time. I set that up. But even aside from that, I'm like, okay, now I have this e-commerce platform. I have video, I have photos from photo shoots for things that we've done. How much can I reuse those? I can't reuse that content a million times all over the internet. It's just too much of the same thing. So I had to really think outside the box. And then I literally came up with this campaign of women that I dropped off product to their house, and they're going to do their own campaign at home. I don't want to give too much of it away. I will obviously post about it when everything comes out, but we're basically having them do this kind of thing where they're in the house and they still want to look good, and you know, they're going to basically use our products and make it very real and very honest. And it is what it is. It's just, this is life. So we can't go in a studio. We can't go, you know, to these places and get our photo shoots done and things like that we would normally do. So it's very, just very different, very interesting. And then also just a huge part of it, something I want to point out, which I think people aren't realizing. So certain things like PPE, which is personal protective equipment. Of course, we're not in medicine, we're not in the hospital, but again, we're very close face to face with people. So the ambiguity of, are these things going to be available? If they're not, if there are certain things we cannot find, we simply cannot run the business. We cannot be open. We cannot do without any of these specific things that we need, like gloves and masks and so on and so forth. Aside from that, prices have been skyrocketing. So something I wanted to point out, for example, a box of face masks were $3.79 for 100 face masks. Back in January, I placed an order right before I even knew COVID was going to happen and all this stuff was going to go down. So $3.79. And now that exact same box for 100 masks is $113 for 100 masks. So you can imagine, do the math. It's just crazy. So one, you want to make sure that it's available, because if it's not, then you can't do your job, period. Number two, even though it is available, it is just crazy prices. So that goes for just the mask, but it can be translated into everything else that we have to purchase and work with. So it's just been really interesting and a lot of changes, but you have to just learn how to, I think the biggest part of it, and it goes back to what you said, Shernaz, back to what you said, Mayor, and I think what everybody and all of us keep saying over here is, and what everybody wanted to know about is continued learning. You have to keep educating yourself, keeping up with the changes, reading, learning about different things that you can do to maintain your business, to maintain whatever, work it is that you do. And if you don't, it's really going to be hard for you to keep up with the times, because these times are changing so rapidly, and every single day I wake up and it's something new, whether it's something with employees, whether it's something with again, PPE, whether it is something new every single day. So if I don't keep learning and keep growing and keep adapting, it's just not going to work. So I think what everybody wants to know about, that continued learning aspect, and then what you guys are saying, which is, this is your new normal, take it for what it is, accept it, and figure out ways to now work with it. Because I always think of like Looney Tunes, literally, but it's like, if you can't beat them, join them. That's literally what it is. If you can't beat it, I mean, join it and just, I don't know, embrace is the right word, but embrace it for what it is and just move forward.
Great. Yeah, the change is astronomical. So Pearl, I know Jella Group has had to rethink how to handle 6 different businesses. Can you talk a little bit about some of those changes, whether it's to do with architectural design, hospitality industries, or how they'll be affected in the future?
So back in India, when the lockdown actually hit, I think I was already so overworked with everything coming on that I took the first 2 days to really just relax. It felt like a holiday and just process what was going on. And the next couple of weeks, I think I just converted it into that time where I was literally giving to myself, without any distractions, without any commitments, to just learn on all the things that I was falling behind on. So for instance, I shared with you guys that I practice design, but I have absolutely no qualifications in it. So this was amazing, because I immediately took time to actually sit and learn online courses on AutoCAD and all the different softwares and tools that I felt I needed to know as a designer. So as far as work got into it, I think I could do a bit of it remotely, but as far as your sites are closed, there's not much you can do. So as far as the design business went, the Salone di Mobile, which is the biggest furniture fair and the festival that happens in Milan each year, was called off. So in the design industry, it's all about networking and meeting people at different events, fairs. That's where you meet your traders and vendors and suppliers, as well as potential clients. So I think what I made sure that didn't happen is, even though I wasn't physically able to go and represent myself, the company and Dad, in fact, took on every webinar or, live session that came our way. So we made sure that we're always interfacing with the clients and the communication was always out. So we wanted to make sure that Della, as far as design went, was always on the forefront so that people wouldn't forget what we're doing. At the same time, we realized it's a new change coming up. So we really started researching on what are the new sanitization norms, what are the new design norms that we can start implementing so that when the lockdown does open up, we're actually far ahead of the race, and we've taken this time to actually prepare on where we want to be after this. While that happened, like I said, certain days I did take off for myself. So whether it was learning piano or doing a bit of gardening, things that I honestly don't think I would have ever been able to do. So each morning was more about just feeling positive and looking at the brighter side of things, because like Natashah said, every day was a new horrible news, being reflected on the channel. So I was always trying to distract myself with that. While that was going on, I think I invested a lot in online courses and a lot of masterclasses. So I think that was a lot of fun. The resort business and the adventure park business is extremely client facing, and looking at the scenario right now, the tourism industry in India or globally is going to be hit really badly. So that is one space we're really trying to see how we can actually innovate and use the time to really kind of up our skills and realize how we're going to deal with small events. Our property has got about 250 to 270 rooms at a point. So the norms of just having a 50 people wedding is not going to work for us in a profitable manner over the long course. So I think we're always coming up with different ways to work on it, and we're marketing high-end small weddings. So I think the resort business, that's where we're looking at it. And I think what we've realized with all of this is we're one of the only companies who's managed to innovate a new business in the lockdown that has absolutely nothing to do with healthcare or selling sanitizers or PPE suits. So we've realized that digital learning is the need for the hour. So we've been focusing all our efforts and channeling every resource we have to come up with a new business. So we've kept ourselves occupied, and we've realized that we need something else to sustain all the other business verticals that we're in. And that's where all the efforts have gone.
Great. So Mare and Rhea, luckily, your jobs have allowed you to work from home during this time. I know that I've also been lucky enough to be in the same position where, we were one of the first companies, Zora, within Silicon Valley to allow employees to work from home before the state of California even mandated the shutdown. I would love to hear from Rhea as far as what benefits and challenges that you've experienced, either having that huge shift in the role change or having to alter your routine.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually find myself being more mindful of my work routine and understanding when to switch off. So pre-COVID, I definitely put in late hours, right? I work with global teams across, various regions, primarily Japan, and a big component of my job is to travel to go to live sporting events. So now that those are on pause, there's really, I find my work life being very one-dimensional, where I'm at my desk on my computer for large stretches of time. And so for me, it's more of putting an emphasis on setting my boundaries. Like if I want to make sure that I switch off a couple days a week at a certain amount of time, I make sure I block my calendar and I tell people that I work with, that is the time that I'm working with, and you can't book meetings outside of that. So it's been really empowering to be able to set boundaries, especially because I feel, especially during these times, it's important to make sure you're showing up mentally and physically in an appropriate way, not only for the people that you work with, but also the people that you're sheltering in place with. Sanity is key. So for me, it's really understanding, what I've loved learning is how to set my boundaries better and incorporate that into my routine.
Nice. So why don't we transition a little bit in terms of COVID and its impact on our personal lives? So with lockdowns and phased reopenings due to the global pandemic, can you highlight some of the impacts that this has had on your personal lives? Natashah, maybe you can get us started.
Yes, I would love to. So again, I'm pregnant. It's been nerve-wracking. It's been really interesting because I also just got married back in October. And so I've I mean, what, 4 or 5 months, 6 months after we got married, I've been literally at home with my husband 24 hours a day, like not exaggerating. We have been home together 24 hours a day. If there was ever a way to get to know somebody really well and make sure that you can get along with them, I mean, there is quite literally no other way to do it. So it's been fine. It's been great. We've actually, you know, had a really, really good time. He does work all day long. He is exactly what Rhea was saying, and I'm sure Mayor can also relate as well. I mean, literally, he can work from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. without blinking his eye, like without just, I mean, he'll keep going. So you have to set boundaries, because if you don't, that would be a big issue. So although we are home all the time together, I mean, he technically is working, so it's not like we're just hanging out all day long, but it's great because that also puts me in that work mode. So, you know, just in terms of that, you know, it's been interesting, but it's been really, really good for us. I mean, I have zero complaints in that aspect. But, you know, there is a sad part of it. And the sad part is that we had tons of plans before, you know, the baby came. We had graduations, my cousin, you know, her graduation, we had, you know, a baby moon because we didn't go on a honeymoon, just certain things that you had, you know, planned, and it was really exciting. And I mean, everybody had that, and things that we were looking forward to doing. You just, you know, it's not going to happen and probably won't happen for a long time. So you just have to accept it and move on. And as long as, you know, you think, okay, as long as I'm healthy, as long as my family is healthy, you know, you just kind of look at it from that aspect, because there's literally no other aspect to look at it from. That's all that matters. So we're really excited for all the changes, but you know, there are certain things that sucked and that were sad, and you know, I feel like it's okay to just acknowledge it, but then you just have to move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For myself, I've had to really be intentional about setting healthier boundaries, and that's something I'm actively working on, because I've always been that type of person that's always on with work. And office space, there's this notion of starting your workday earlier, so that time when you're typically going to be commuting into work, that time is now, you know, a meeting that's scheduled earlier, and then meetings scheduled later on in the day. So it's really been a blurring of that personal and work environment that is still taking time to adjust to. But actively trying to work on that every day. I think the hardest thing for me personally as well is being away from loved ones and family with long distance travel being shut down. There's a lot of uncertainty there. And so my family personally is distributed between Canada and India. And two of my family members, my mom and my brother, are actually working on the front lines. So shout out to everyone working on the front lines. One of the, you know, even for my brother today, he's actually in a completely different city away from my parents. And he's, today actually marks the first day where he started his residency program at a new hospital. And so that, you know, just, you know, everyone putting their lives at risk in these situations is definitely, you know, fearful at times, and it's hard to be away, but excited for better times.
Way to leave me so emotional, Cher, before my turn. What were we talking about? Everything I'm gonna say now just seems like first world problems. So yeah, in terms of my personal life, being an extrovert and being somebody who, you know, I really thrive off of being busy, and you know, the busier I am, I feel like the more stuff I get done. I'm sure many of you can relate to that. So when I had nothing, I had to really get creative, and I started, you know, scheduling things in, and I started scheduling in fitness every morning with my friends. So I am that much of a people person that, like, I can't work out on my own. So my girlfriend, we call each other on over Zoom, and then we do like a YouTube video every single morning, and it has been, you know, such a lifesaver. Just to stay active and keep moving. I've scheduled in literally everything. So it's funny because all my other artist friends who are like dancers or who, you know, teach Spanish or other things, they all of a sudden all want to learn how to sing. So, so I've been doing all these trade lessons where I'm learning a new skill and I'm teaching them how to sing too. So I'm learning Spanish and dance just through those, you know, trade-offs with my friends, which has been super fun because when am I ever going to get a chance to do that again? And, you know, creating things that I needed, like an acting club. I'm not auditioning all the time, so I need to keep up with my skills. And so, you know, I got a group of my friends together, and we go through monologues and different scenes and work on our audition skills too. I really think scheduling and literally everything is so important to me right now, because it gives me things to look forward to, you know, even if it's a physically distanced walk with a friend. I really need that, or a virtual book club thing. I've literally just been jam-packing my schedule with fun things to do and to learn. And like Pearl was saying, you know, masterclass, there are just so many things out there that are incredible. I'm not gonna lie, I found it pretty overwhelming. I think the first 2 months, even being on Instagram, you know, everybody was doing a Zoom or a live fitness class, and I just, you know, I had to take a step back and said, whoa, like there are way too many options. I kind of want to just do my own thing. So you really have to search and figure out what it is that you're passionate about or what it is that you're interested in. But there are so many free courses going on right now, which is such a blessing. So again, updating your skills, and if there's ever something that you want to do, create it yourself. Now is the time to, you know, find those people, and there are no border issues. There are no limitations on where this other person could live. I also do, before COVID happened, I always used to like to take out somebody for coffee who I found really inspiring and interesting, and kind of just pick their brain on anything. And now I can just do that through Zoom. So for instance, like in the following weeks, I'm going to be talking to a girl on Broadway in West Side Story who, you know, I would have loved to have taken her out on coffee, but like, when am I going to be in New York next, you know? So sharing that on my Instagram channel and doing that kind of stuff live. So now everybody can, you know, pick these fascinating artists that I find super inspiring and interesting. Like everybody can be a part of that conversation now. So there have been so many blessings from this, for sure.
I think just going off of what Mara said, everyone has a little bit more extra time. Even if work is getting crazier, you still have more time to grow and develop hobbies. So like now that I don't have to commute to an office, and normally my commute was like 45 minutes to an hour each way, now I can spend my mornings. I started something called Kale Cam on my Instagram, where I grew kale from like a seedling to a plant, which is really cool and something normally I would never take the time to do. And it also gives you just more time to think about like how much work-life balance do you actually have when you don't have a commute, and what hobbies would you rather develop over jam-packing your weekend to see and go and hang out with friends. What workouts are really fun for you versus you're just doing it to go get a workout. So I've started biking and spending a lot of time outside, and biking is something I never did before COVID happened. So it's a really great time, I think, to not only grow professionally, but also grow personally and spend a lot of time with yourself, which has been cool.
Yeah, I mean, to Mare's point too, like definitely finding new hobbies myself. I've discovered a love for baking that I did not know that I existed before. So for people that follow me on social media, they just get spammed with all these pictures of all the cakes that I'm making, which is probably no different than what a lot of other people are doing out there, but it's something that keeps you sane and it keeps you motivated throughout the day, right? When you have that extra free time. I think on the other side of it, what I personally miss is my group exercise classes. And it sounds a bit bougie because I do go to like the Orange Theories of the world and the Berries boot camps of the world, where you get a nice eucalyptus towel at the end of your workout. So it's little things like that, but I'm finding a lot of joy in new creative ways to stay active. So, you know, I'll discover new run routes around my neighborhood. I will run 2 miles to go see really close family friends, have a socially distanced try, and then run 2 miles back. So it's just finding new ways to stay active for me, which has been a real, you know, interesting interesting aspect of this new normal for me, and I'm enjoying it. You know, I think it's to the point that Natashah said earlier, you kind of have to adapt and just take it for what it is and make the best out of it.
So for me, I think, again, like Nair said, it was time to grow personally and professionally at the same time. And on the personal front, I started investing too much time in hobbies. And like Rhea said, you know, giving a shot at cooking something in the kitchen or maybe a hobby. But I realized that two things that I learned from this whole experience. One was that I didn't require to be productive every single day. I think we suddenly have this onslaught of a little additional time on our hands, and the need to constantly be productive. I think I just became a little okay with that you need to take time off and kind of, you know, maneuver each day the way it comes. So that's something that I didn't want to pressurize myself with, because I realized I was, again, making a schedule and really packing everything up till the last minute. The same time, I went ahead and decided that, you know, I would again give a lot back to community service. And now that everything was going digital, I realized that things are a lot more easier. With the new business, we're trying to set up a thing which is a little more globally. So it invariably made sure that we landed up speaking to a lot of people. And I didn't think I would actually be connecting with so many people. So I think that constant connection with people all over just made a lot more sense. It was always work. Like being in a family business, there is no differentiating between family or business. And now that my siblings have started working, it's always work talk at the dinner table and like family talk at the boardroom. So the differentiation, and with the lockdown, everything just became a whole lot more fun. I think we all started working like a unit together. We knew what each one was good at, and, you know, we started complementing each other. So just as a family dynamic, I think it worked really well. And my grandmom, like I was sharing on the FEZANA stories, I managed to get a lot more time in with her. And I think she's also enjoying the most of actually having all her 3 grandchildren at home at any point in time of the day to really go approach and, you know, have a quick chat with. So I think personally it has been good. And professionally, we're all just still trying to navigate and see what this new normal is going to be for all of us. But work does not stop. So that's how it is.
Nice. So learning is a key aspect of growth. What are some of the ways that each of you have either learned to adapt or innovate during this time?
I think I said a lot of mine before, but just to reiterate, you know, transferring everything online, hosting this inspiration series on my Instagram Live, reaching out to people that I never thought that I could get together with before, but now, you know, over Zoom you can talk to anybody. Have an accountability buddy for me is huge, because as much as I sound like I'm jam-packing my schedule with different things, just like Pearl said, like you never want to overwhelm yourself, and you should always be doing everything that you actually really want to do, and rest is just as important. So yeah, have an accountability buddy. A lot of people are working from home now, so, you know, have a mentor, have like a weekly check-in, have somebody else to keep you accountable, or know your schedule or anything, in case you're trying to start something new or work on something new. It can be very hard to do that all on your own. Yeah, and just being a part of things like my acting club and my book club, keep me actively learning, which is nice.
So I think for me, with learning because I spoke about masterclass and I had a couple of people asking me, what is it that I've been watching? So there's one fantastic woman who is such an inspiration. And I think even though she is particularly for the fashion segment, her story is so relatable. Her name is Sarah Blakely, and she is the founder of Spanx. And as a business mind, as a storyteller, as an inspiration, she is one woman I think girl, boy, everyone needs to really look up and see what she's doing and how she's carving a niche for herself. She really kind of digs deep into the entrepreneurial mindset. So anybody wanting to start off something on their own, which I hope they do. But so I think that's been amazing. As a company, what's happened is we're very technologically advanced. So we've made sure we've got automation and Alexa voice modulation in each of our projects way before even Alexa came into India, or the fact that all our furniture has got like USB modular things and wireless chargers integrated. But as a company, we're one of those people that just don't believe in emails or doing things over Skype back in the day. So for us to actually make that move from an organization that preferred to actually meet face-to-face and conduct business to launching an entire business, which is on a digital platform, at the same time communicating remotely with everyone, I think has been a really good, refreshing challenge for all of us. So the learning has been almost like a startup. So all these years I've watched Dad set up each business, but I really wasn't it was more like I was there, but I wasn't completely hands-on involved. But feeling like this, I think it's been amazing, because now I feel like I'm part of a startup as well. And I've been able to benefit both from a very settled, established corporate culture to now something where everyone's working remotely. And, you know, we're starting, you know, ground up all the way from registering a new company. So I think the experience has been great, and the learning doesn't stop. We've got a lot of courses online on Coursera. So I think more than that, everybody just gets a little overwhelmed with things that they think they like, but they don't realize things that are actually going to add or complement the field that you're already in. So even though there's a plethora of information available out there, I would just make sure everyone's a little more structured in where they're going and in what direction they want to take. And as far as somebody who really wants to just learn but isn't really in the mood to, there are amazing documentaries on Netflix. I absolutely love the book Becoming by Michelle Obama. I think the woman is wonderful. And my family didn't understand the excitement that I had after reading the book, and why I wouldn't, if my dinner table conversation every night was what chapters I read right before, and I would narrate it to them. So when the documentary came out on Netflix, it had to be an official family movie night. And, you know, we had the whole streaming, and that's when I think everyone really understood and appreciated the book. So I think, you know, it just doesn't have to be a very institutional thing that you're learning. Even a good documentary on Netflix is a starting point with, you know, getting your brain cells churned up.
I think that is, oh, sorry, Shernaz, I apologize.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's so great, Pearl. I have constantly been doing the same. I think that everybody on this panel is doing the same, but I did want to like take a step back. I had a few things that I was going to talk about, but then I'm like, honestly, who cares? Like, those things don't matter, because I think it's really important to talk about the fact that yes, this is actually a really interesting time, because we have a lot of free time available to us that we wouldn't have in the past. But I think it's also okay to say that it's okay to not come up with something new. It's okay to not come up with a new hobby or learn something that you love or whatever it is. If you just want to take the time to recharge and reset because you are so worn out by everything that is going on, that is okay too. I've actually, interestingly, I've had to innovate due to certain things in business wise, but I've actually reverted back to doing other things that I have found myself lacking time to do, which is teach my nephews prayers. You know, my nephew's going to be 10. He wants to do his Sadr Pushi or Navjot, whichever word you use, but you know, soon. So I've been taking the time to like do prayers with him, teach them about their religion, just certain different things that I feel like we have just kind of sometimes lost touch with, and it really helps bring us back to who we are. And those are things that can make you feel really, really good too. So everyone that is listening in, just know that it's okay to kind of also not do anything sometimes and just do the bare minimum if that's what you feel like you need to do. And it's also nice to revert back to those things that are not innovative, that are actually almost things that we have maybe steered away from. It's kind of nice to come back to that. They remind us of home, they remind us of family, they remind us of culture, and they remind us of who we are. And I think just through that, sometimes it really helps us, you know, when the time comes that we do want to move forward or we do want to innovate or whatever it may be. Sometimes it's the simplest things that we can think of and revert back to that helps us progress in the future.
Completely agree.
Yeah, no, me too. And then I know that some of the other ladies have talked about, you know, the importance of professional development, and that's definitely something that I'm focused on as well. And especially during COVID, it's how do you innovate, right? When you can't meet people face to face to to do those types of courses. So I've just been leaning into resources that I've been able to find through work, as well as other recommendations. So, tapping into learning platforms like Udemy and taking courses there, or I've enrolled in a virtual leadership coaching course, which is paid dividends. I work with a really great independent consultant that's worked with Fortune 500 brands, sports companies, as well as athletes, in terms of, how do you prepare yourself for those senior leadership roles. And that's been immensely helpful for me, even if it has been done virtually. And then in addition to that, it's also finding out, like through work, other people to connect with outside of my area of expertise. That's really important to me, because I feel like it gives you a different perspective, as well as shows you a different set of skill set and how someone is managing their way successfully across different levels of management that way. So I've been partnered up with another mentor internally in my organization, who I've just started conversing with to help me in that aspect, in terms of bouncing off different business ideas, getting guidance from her on how to show up, especially when it comes to interacting with, the C-suite at our company. And it's been extremely valuable. So it's how can you innovate in a virtual world while still concentrating on, the things that are important to you, even outside of the pandemic.
Right. I've shared some of the links in the chat window itself. So resources definitely that folks in the audience can check out. I know for me, it's been a time of, my learning has really been trying to almost decompress from the sheer volume of Zoom meetings and virtual meetings that I have to be plugged into day and night. And so I very much enjoy the master classes where I can just, decompress my mind. And I like some of the classes with chefs Thomas Keller and Gordon Ramsay. I know my work has also been doing some work. My Headspace is actually a client of Zora's, as well as we have partnered with them to provide some more resources and support for our own employees. And so we actually have a daily meditation. So that's something nice in terms of just making sure that we're continuing to have that mindfulness and being able to recharge ourselves through the busy day. So now what I'd like to do is move on to rapid fire before we open up for Q&A. And so we have a lightning round of random questions. We actually don't know what they are, so this is not scripted. The only thing that we know is who's asking who the next question. This is going to be something where you can get to know us a little bit better and learn something new.
So I think I'm going to start up with this one. Shernaz, if you were to get the first flight out, which is that location that you're going to hit immediately?
I would probably say the UK. I definitely think that that's a very central place to travel. UK, Canada, or India. I think those are probably the top three on my list, just given how everyone is globally distributed. So, okay, I'm going to ask Mayor Bharucha the next question. So, what is your favorite beverage?
Coffee, very easy. Natashah, what have you read most recently?
I actually read, that's a good question. I read this book called Darius the Great is Not Okay, or Darius the Great is Not Okay. It's actually an interesting book. A little synopsis if anybody's interested in reading it. It's about a half Persian kid, which I knew he was half Persian. What I didn't know is that he's actually half Zoroastrian. So it actually ended up being very interesting because they went back to Yazd to visit their grandparents. So anyways, it's a really good book if anyone is bored and wants something good to read.
It's based on a true story?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, but it was very interesting. I really liked it. Okay, Rhea, if you could make a documentary about anything, what would it be?
That's a great question. I would focus on representation of women in the sports world. I think it's a subject that hasn't been touched upon. It's actually something that's a real huge passion point in my life. You know, being that sports is a very male-dominated field, and I don't see a lot of representation. But you know, the hope is that it gets better. But that's what I would focus on, because I think it's an interesting perspective as far as you know, sports is concerned, and showing a different point of view on it. And then my question is for Mayor Pavri. What is your favorite dessert?
Definitely creme brulee. Anything from Paris, really. My question is for Pearl. It's brunch. What do you eat?
Avocado toast.
Oh, yum.
The most American it can get. But
Nice, nice.
I think we can.
Okay, cool. So I want to, before we open up to Q&A, I just want to take a moment to thank every one of these panelists. Tanya Hoshi, Farhan, Jimmy Mistry. There was a lot of work that went on behind the scenes, and all of this is voluntary work. So between all the Instagram takeovers, the coordination of even this webinar, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. And then as well, just one quick public service announcement. FEZANA is also going to be doing a talk tomorrow at the same time. It's basically going to be a facilitated space where they will have the youth talk about what they want to see FEZANA work and support youth with during these times and even beyond. So definitely want to encourage you guys to plug in for that session as well tomorrow. So we have some time for Q&A. I know we had some great questions come in from the audience members. I'd love to encourage all of you guys to repost any of those questions in the chat at this time, and we can go ahead and answer some of those questions for you.
I just wanted to clarify, someone named Yasmin asked a question. I'm not sure what the question was. Do you mind reposting it? Or I don't know, maybe I just didn't understand it. I'd like to definitely acknowledge it. I don't think I really understood what she was asking, but if anybody else does, then please feel free.
Are we able to open it up so they can ask the question directly?
So if someone could,
I think they can just type it in on this like Q&A.
Want to come on live and ask the question, I can let
Okay, maybe we can ask Yasmin to come online.
Yeah, and also make sure that if you're typing the question, it says it's ticked off as all panelists and attendees so that everybody can view your question.
I can definitely answer this anonymous attendee asked a question. I can just start off answering that so we don't waste time. How has spirituality helped you through this, as in COVID? I think I answered a little bit about that. I think going back to your roots, I think going back to, for me personally, going back to, you know, my religion, my spirituality, really, really helps me, just me as a person. It helps ground me. It helps keep me in a space that's really healthy and keeps me very mindful. So I think and being around a lot of people like my co-panelists, all of them, we have a chat, we have a group where we talk a lot and kind of talk about different things, even though it's not necessarily, you know, religious or spirituality related. It's just even the fact that we just do come from the same faith, that in itself is really helpful. So personally for me, just certain things like, you know, meditation, even just doing prayers in itself, that's a form of meditation for me personally. Teaching my nephews, you know, things about the religion, that I just, you know, who gets the time? I mean, that's really sad. I feel bad saying it, but really who does get the time on a day-to-day basis to do things like that? So that has helped me tremendously.
And I just want to also let everybody know, though, that Natashah was so sweet yesterday in our group chat. She messaged us saying that she had prayed for all of us because it's Barham Road. It's a very auspicious day for all of us. And I think that's just so sweet that we all keep in touch. And I know for me, like every morning, I obviously start my day with praying and doing my custody. And you know, it's just, everything is just sprinkled in with spirituality or different things in our culture, and having, you know, Saganu Revo yesterday was so nice, and getting to share that virtually with my sister Cher. So little things like that are just, you know, always dispersed within our days.
I see a question from Priyanka that says, from your personal experience, what can you share about the evolution that corporations like Tesla have been through, from initial reaction to adaptation to future planning? What can we expect and hope for in terms of economic outlook, employment, growth of the private sector in the US? That's a really loaded question, and I want to keep it kind of brief to allow time for other panelists and questions as well. But I think what we've seen is that as long as you build a product that you're really confident in, you don't need a lot of marketing dollars. We have no marketing budget. You don't need really anything, as long as you're really confident and persevere in your idea and your product. And I think Natashah has seen the success of her waxing formulations and things like that as well, just from having confidence in your project. And hopefully, the second point is also, like, Elon was an immigrant to the US. I am a first generation immigrant. I think immigrants have a lot to offer for the American economy, and we've already accomplished so much. So I hope that the administration starts to change some of their policies around immigration as well, because I think they provide a lot for the private sector.
I think there's one that's just come in. Awesome to see so many boss lady Zoros. What do you think had the biggest impact to get where you are? I had to join late, so sorry if this was previously answered. Do one of you want to take it?
I'm happy to. Oh,
Rhea, go ahead.
You know, I was just gonna say, I think mentorship has played a big part. A lot of us have talked about, you know, networking and you know, relying on that network, you know, to help us, you know, in our business in different ways, and even just in terms of helping us get different positions. And that's important. It's important to have people that, you know, believe in you as well as support you and help connect you with the right people. So I think mentorship has played an extremely valuable role in the growth that I've had and the success that I've had. And particularly in my current role, I have a phenomenal mentor in my boss, who's an awesome lady who's tuning in right now. So hi, Kristen. And she's been a huge advocate. So I think when you have a great mentor, you have that advocate that fights for you, that believes in you, and tells you honestly, like, the great things about you, but also the places where you need to improve. And that type of self-awareness is definitely what you need. So when you hear it from other people, it definitely helps in terms of focusing on what you need to work on. So that's really important.
Natashah, I think you can continue with the same question.
Oh, gosh, I really, really do think it is okay, so depends on what your product is, depends on what your service or your business is, but putting that customer or client first and really seeing it from their lens is the number one step to success. And then being able to translate that in a way that people understand what it is that you're trying to do. So it's one thing to be able to do it, but then it's also another thing to be able to translate that to the general public that are interested in what you have to offer, for them to really understand that how you're differentiating yourself from, you know, the next car, from the next hotel, from the next salon, from the next whatever it may be. I think that's really important, because I think I've noticed that a lot of people, they do not necessarily go out of the way to search for things. They hear about things through their word of mouth. If it gets a lot of press, or if it becomes popular in the community, that's when people kind of, it piques their interest. So really being able to get that out there, not even necessarily through marketing, which can be, of course, extremely, extremely important. But, you know, figuring out a way just through your branding and different things like that can help tremendously. So I think that's the biggest impact. And then, of course, aside from that, my family and just all that on the back end, which I think goes without saying, has helped me, you know, become the person I am and have ambition and want to move forward, and also just truly wanting to help people and truly wanting to be someone great that can be you know, a mentor and a leader for people in a way that, you know, that I feel proud of.
I think someone just asked if this is being recorded and where we're going to post it. Yes, it is. It's going to be posted on FEZANA's YouTube page as well as FEZANA's website, FEZANA Talks, so you can catch the video there.
I saw Cyrus had a few questions. Does he want to ask those?
Cyrus asked a question, what's the first thing you will do once the lockdown is over? Anyone can.
Travel. Travel for work or personal.
Yeah.
Travel for me.
Yeah.
All just really wait to travel. And I think we appreciate it a lot more now that we know truly what a big luxury traveling and just being out and meeting people is. So I think that's definitely one of them. I think there's another question that's come in anonymously. During this new norm, do you each see yourselves as a leader or a follower? I think for me, I'll start with this one, definitely a leader. If you don't take charge, you don't innovate, and you don't do something new to differentiate yourself, you're going to be irrelevant and the competition is more fierce than ever. That being said, you don't have to be cruel or unkind to the scenario around you. So don't get into price wars, don't get into competing with your competition, because this is the time truly that you need to collaborate more than anything else. So I think be a leader and be a leader in collaborating, and that's going to be the way you overcome this obstacle. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Rhea, we've got one from Cyrus for you. Being in the sporting world, who is your favorite sports person and who would you most like to meet in the sporting industry?
That's a great question. So my favorite sporting person, personally, I'd have to say I'm a huge tennis fan. I've been a tennis fan for many years, and for my family and friends around me, they're probably laughing right now because they know what a big fan I am. I'm a huge fan of Rafa Nadal. I think his work ethic on and off the court is pretty impeccable. I love his mentality, most importantly. It's a fighting spirit, never give up, always fight to the last point, even if you're down love 40. You continue to try to win points, point by point. And that's how I lead my life too. So there's a lot of great principles that you can take from, at least I take from watching my idols, in action. Another person is definitely has developed over time is Stephen Curry, and I work with him really closely, so I get that other perspective on him. He's just, more than being such a wonderful world-class athlete, he's a good person. And that's important in terms of how you show up, not only in your professional space, but personally and within the community. He does so much to give back. And he's so collaborative with his brand partners as well. So yeah, that's definitely two of my favorites.
Yeah, I love how humanistic he can be. There was one question from Yasmin a while back where I think this one was probably for Pearl. So she's in the US and wanted to see what she can learn. She's a realtor in marketing, first generation of Indian American for retirement housing.
So Yasmin, I think retirement housing, I don't know too much about the real estate segment in the States, but what I can tell you is retirement housing is going to be given a lot of priority now, especially because this sad virus is affecting the older generation a lot more than the younger ones. There is only so long that we're going to be able to be so protective and possessive of the elderly that live with us. But it's like cooping someone up. It's really unfair that we get to go out, even though it's with masks and gloves and all the precautions, but we still get to get out there and go for work while they're supposed to be at home. So I think this is the time when people will really start investing in old age homes that actually take precautions. So I think you should, as from a marketing perspective, really focus on health, hygiene, and sanitation. And also, I think maybe some amount of seclusion, more that they're away from populated areas, the more likely I think this time around the property is to sell, unlike a normal scenario where everyone wants to be closer to the city.
And then we have a question for Mayor. What's the atmosphere like at Tesla regarding SpaceX mission? Obviously, we're not looking for you to breach any confidentiality here.
No, I mean, I think we're all pretty thrilled. I think if you can launch a rocket, re-land the boosters in the middle of the ocean, and then reuse it again and get astronauts up to safe spacely, I imagine you can probably build a pretty good car. So we're all pretty excited and proud of our sister company, as well as our fearless leader.
Great. So I'm going to do 2 more questions and then I will close. Question from Farah. Rhea, will you continue to bake after lockdown is over? I know Mayor.
Yes, I will. And from scratch, everything. I'm excited to try new, more complex recipes. So if anybody has any recommendations, let me know. I mean, obviously, I've through my mom and my sister, I get all the Parsi recipes, but I'm open to everything.
I have a tiramisu recipe for you if you want.
Oh, lovely. Send it over.
World Zoroastrian's baking group.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Parsies
But I feel like I would
recipes.
compete with a couple other groups there.
I think Zubin's asked Rhea another one. How did you get into the sports industry and why did you stay?
Hi, Zubin Chichker. I know him. Thank you for the question. So I got into the sports industry my last semester of college at Berkeley. I had finished all my core curriculum and I noticed that I could take a lot of electives and they offered sports marketing as an elective, and it opened me up to a whole new world as far as being able to work in the business side of sports. So I immediately researched what internships I could get right out of that, and I guess the rest is history. And I think the other part of your question is why did I stay? And it's so much related to my passion point. I don't see a lot of people like me in my industry, especially Indian Zoro girls. So I personally take it as a responsibility to represent and to advocate for others. And I'm always happy to be a mentor for other people, male or female, that want to enter the industry, especially from the Zoro community. So that's why I stay.
Nice. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up at this point, but before I do, one last question that I can take on. So this one was from Zubin Modi, and he is asking for recommendations for young professionals working in tech sales who want to break into product management. So I would encourage a few things. I would identify mentors that are in product management who you can connect with. At this point, this is a good time right now to just reach out to folks on LinkedIn, establish connections, build your network. Even within your own company itself, I would network and try to discover like what a day in the life of a product manager is like. There's product management certifications as well that you can take additional courses. So I would encourage you to complete those and get certified there. But it is completely possible to transition from, a sales role to product management. We have a lot of those folks even within our own company. So definitely that sales background will be an asset as you experience a different part of the organization. And so don't ever think of it as, you needing to start from scratch, because all of that experience that you have had will only benefit you. We have just a minute left. I wanted to just highlight one sort of ray of hope. What this entire discussion has really reminded me of is this one of the oldest stories. You guys have probably all heard the sugar and milk story of Parsis or Zoroastrians settling in India, and that story of King Jadavrana, where when the Zoroastrians migrated to India, we really assimilated, blended together like sugar and milk. And humans are a very resilient race and a group of people. And I think that it's just a matter of time, but we are all sort of embracing this change in the best way that we can. And so I wanted to say thank you all for attending our panel today.
Thank you. Thank you, Shernaz, for moderating it. I think You've done a fabulous job again for the second time around. I think I speak on everyone's behalf when I say thank you. Thank you,
pleasure.
FEZANA, for doing this for us. And yeah, we can.
Okay, we'll share the recording.
Parshan.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.